Hello again. In this video, I'm going to talk about some general points to consider when it comes to selling goods or items in the UAE through social media platforms. Now, whether it is food, clothing, household consumables, homemade handicraft items, beauty products, or any other type of tangible goods, selling these sorts of items online through social media platforms as part of some kind of business operation, regardless of whether it is small scale or not, is ultimately considered to be an e-commerce business activity and is therefore subject to certain rules and regulation. In addition, there are also consumer protection issues arising from this, which can be important to keep in mind as well. I'm going to briefly look at this under the following 5 general points. Number 1, the legal position around UAE residents selling goods or items online through social media platforms. Number 2, what the potential risks are for doing it unlawfully. Number 3, what are some of the licensing options? Number 4, does it appear to be happening more often? I'll touch on some examples. And number 5, what are some of the current trends in this space? So let's explore this topic a bit more in this video. Welcome back. I'm Yusuf Ahmed and I'm an international lawyer originally from Scotland and the UK. My boutique practice specialises in all aspects of commercial law. My work often involves international or multi-jurisdictional elements. If you require any advice, guidance or assistance with anything, then feel free to get in touch. The exponential and inexorable growth of the internet, and in particular the various social media websites and platforms, has provided almost limitless potential for connectivity on both a personal level and also in terms of earning a bit of extra income through selling things online. Social media platforms have rapidly become popular mediums through which people can advertise certain goods and products through their personal page, connect with others, and then sell their goods or items quickly and easily. It's a very easy and simple way to start off a small kind of enterprise in this way from the comfort of your own home. Whether it is selling food items such as home-baked cakes or pastries, for example, or custom-made clothing that has been hand-stitched or put together in some special way, perhaps with a unique design, homemade handicraft items, or even beauty products which could be homemade or are being sold as part of an existing stock. There are so many different kinds of variations to this. However, is it really as simple and straightforward as posting and selling such goods or items through your social media page or profile? I would highlight that if you are going to remember anything from this video, it should be this key takeaway point. Any person conducting any form of economic or business activity in the UAE needs to have a relevant license issued by a relevant licensing authority. This overarching general rule applies to anyone in the UAE, resident or otherwise, and includes those selling goods or items through social media platforms as part of some kind of business or enterprise. It is essentially considered to be a commercial activity and therefore is subject to certain licensing requirements. It is all too easy to be tempted into selling goods or items through popular social media platforms, given how quickly and easily it can be done. However, from a legal standpoint, it is not quite as simple and straightforward as posting and selling the goods or items through your social media page or profile. Under the letter of the law, a relevant license is required. There are clear risks involved for anyone doing this in the UAE without a relevant license. Financial penalties, for example, could range anywhere between 20,000 dirhams to $500,000, depending on the nature and extent of the violation. In addition, if there are circumstances where there is a combination of serious violations, then the penalties could be higher. To minimize any potential risk in this regard, it makes sense to simply acquire a relevant license, which in many cases can be obtained in a relatively cost-effective way, so staying on the right side of the law does not necessarily have to be an expensive endeavour. Given that having a relevant license is a requirement here, there are various options available. For example, the Dubai Department of Economic Development, also known as the Dubai DED, has made available e-trader licenses as part of an initiative to help strengthen Dubai's position as an e-commerce hub. And this type of license is specifically aimed at individuals looking to sell goods or items online, including through popular social media platforms. So that's an option. And one of the potential advantages of that type of license is that there may be some more flexibility available on some of the usual red tape requirements, such as having to have registered physical premises or commercial storage for goods or items. The precise nature and scope of the specific advantages is subject to change from time to time, so it is always a good idea to seek out advice if you need some guidance or up-to-date information about it. Other DEDs in other Emirates have probably taken similar steps in making the same or similar licenses available. Certainly, the Dubai DED has recognised the ease in which people can sell goods or items through social media platforms, and has perhaps also seen how this has been going on increasingly, and as such has come up with flexible licensing options in order to facilitate and regulate the sale of goods or items through those channels. A number of free zones in the UAE also offer inexpensive e-commerce licenses, which provides even more choice, especially for those who might like to sell goods or items to a target market or focus on cross-border selling. It might also be worth exploring whether a relevant freelancer permit is available from a licensing authority, which covers selling goods or items through social media platforms. I've made a video about freelancing in Dubai, so if this is something that is of interest to you, then you might like to have a look at that video as well to learn a little bit more about how freelancing works in Dubai. A link to that video is in the description box below. Now, coming back to the point on licensing options, it's also worth highlighting that some folk sell perishable items through social media platforms such as cakes or other baked foods. Where these types of consumable items are being sold, in addition to the requirement of a license, additional approvals will typically be needed for those selling these sorts of items. This really stems from a consumer protection standpoint, as the sale of baked food items needs to meet strict hygiene requirements to ensure that it is safe for consumption. As such, individuals selling these sorts of items will need relevant external approvals and certifications from a relevant regulator or authority. The importance of being properly licensed cannot be understated. I have come across several examples of people turning to selling things through social media platforms, selling things like homecraft, cakes, and baked food items, as well as the other examples that I mentioned earlier. But because they are not properly licensed, then they can't grow their business properly. And aside from the risks that they are taking by doing this without having an appropriate license in place, if one of their customers ends up falling ill from baked food items sold to them, then that could become a very messy situation all round, and the absence of a license could be the least of their worries. I can also remember another example where stay-at-home mums were found to be making tailor-made clothes, accessories, and selling some beauty products. They were basically running garment and beauty businesses from their homes and selling these items through social media platforms. Conducting this sort of business might appear seemingly innocuous. However, without an appropriate license, it is ultimately risky business. Even before the pandemic, there was an increasing trend in people utilizing popular social media platforms to sell goods or items, often as a side hustle to begin with, before turning it into a small enterprise. Following the unprecedented global lockdown restrictions, this trend only increased even more. Although most, if not all, of the restrictions around physical movement, etc., are now in our rear-view mirror, selling things through social media platforms is arguably still as popular as ever. And with there having been a common mainstream shift towards working from home or hybrid or blended working arrangements in general, it doesn't look like this will let up anytime soon. On the contrary, perhaps it could be likely to be seen as an ongoing trend. Many people do choose to take advantage of the relative ease of selling goods or items through social media platforms. It's a quick, easy and efficient way to earn some income with little, if any, cost attached to it. All of which makes it a very appealing and attractive proposition. It's easily tempting, and as a result, some folk inadvertently end up assuming certain risks, typically as a result of being unaware of the legal requirements around it in the UAE. In my experience, once folk in the UAE become aware of the legal aspects around selling goods or items online, whether that is through popular social media platforms or otherwise, they usually become keen to make their business legal and compliant with the relevant rules and regulations applicable to their business activities. That is when they usually tend to reach out for expert advice. More often than not, they just need someone to help guide them with clear and sound advice on what they need to do and then help them do it. And that's where someone like myself can step in to help, advise and assist those entrepreneurs to get set up properly with their business and then be there to assist them with the journey as and when needed. Alright, that's it for this one. I hope you found this video useful. Any questions or queries, then let me know. And of course, if you require any advice or assistance with anything, then feel free to get in touch. You can send me an email with your inquiry. My email address is in the description box below, and I would be delighted to assist you. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you next time.